Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Zachary Gale Experience 369. It's your host, Zach Gale. Today, we're going to be talking about Rick and Morty, one of my favorite shows. And, I'm hyped for season 4 to come out. Before we actually get into talking about Rick and Morty, I wanted to say a quick RIP to the producer, Michael Mendel, who worked on Rick and Morty and The Simpsons as well. He helped produce. So, RIP to him. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about why Rick and Morty is one of my favorite shows. You can notice I'm wearing a Rick and Morty t-shirt if you're watching me on YouTube. But yeah, so I like the idea how they get into quantum mechanics slash quantum physics a little bit. And quantum mechanics, if you're unaware, it's the idea that there's a particle over here and and somewhere else in the universe it's a calculatable number. It's a huge, massive number. But there's a particle at point A and at point B at some massive amount of distance in the universe. And essentially, since we are made up of particles, we are it. That's also part of the theory is that there's me making this video or not making this video somewhere else. And Rick and Morty really flirts with this idea a whole lot. They love to be like Rick C-137, and then Morty oftentimes, gets replaced because he's just as important as Rick, but it seems Rick has more of a less emotional connection to him because there's just infinite amount of Mortys and he's more interested in the science aspect of things. And so there's an episode, spoiler alert, don't watch this or listen to this if you're not all the way caught up with Rick and Morty. But when Rick and Morty switch into the dimension, quotation marks, where summer, it's the dimension where the whole world got turned into Cronenberg Rick and Morty's, and Cronenberg Rick and Morty ended up moving to this dimension. But this is because, if you remember, this is because Morty approached Rick and wanted a love serum to essentially make Jessica fall in love with him. If you want somebody to fall in love with you, be yourself, and love will always find a way, even though, things might not be going very good or whatever. It always finds a way, even if I like the philosophy, if you love something, let it go, and if it comes back, then it's meant to be. But anyways, so quantum mechanics. So Rick's portal gun is essentially how you're able to shift to different realities. He does this voluntarily through this device that he calls a portal gun. So he just like shoots the portal gun or whatever, and he's just in another dimension, essentially just walks through. And there's theories that you can do this like reality shifting or whatnot. I'll probably get to these at some point. But it's really interesting the fact that it's a show that really is not only really funny, but it actually is scientifically uh, proven. The quantum computers, which are the next step in computing technology, are actually going to replace computers that we use currently. Google, this isn't something you'll see on the news, but Google actually recently completed a quantum computer that was actually able to do calculations that would take a conventional computer 10,000 years to do. And it did it in about, I believe it was like 30 seconds or so. So like a fraction of the time. And so let's just say that I'm at point A talking to you right now, and there's someone else at point B talking to you as well. Now, pretend I'm holding my hands behind my back and I have either a 1 or a 2. And just think really quick as to what I could possibly holding up. The answer isn't important. But the reason why I bring this up is that it's in that scenario, there's 2 separate outcomes. So there's 2 separate realities that could potentially exist within those circumstances. Who is to say that somewhere else that I did not put up a 2 when I put up a 1? And it's just really interesting. And quantum mechanics also talks about Um, so everything is like a plane. Think of it as like a flat piece of paper or whatever. Let's see if I can find one. Think of it as this. It's not really flat, but think of it as a piece of paper. And at one point on the left, people typically think of it as the past, and in the middle is the present, and the right's the future. But quantum mechanics explains it differently. It's explained as everything. I'm quoting Nikola Tesla. If you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibrations. And that's very true. If everything's vibrating in a different wavelength that's out there, because I believe this to be something that someday we'll be able to prove. Well, it's already proven that there's a particle at point A and point B. You can calculate that mathematically, but you don't know how to find or which direction that's in. There's an 360 degrees expanding out influence of where that could be. And this kind of ties into the Mandela effect. Maybe the Mandela effect is tied into why people remember stuff differently than others. Maybe their root of where they're from is a different dimension. And tying that back into Rick and Morty, there's all different types of Ricks, all different types of Mortys. You have some that are more quote unquote Rick, more quote unquote Morty. And if you want to visualize or manifest the version of you that you want to be, it's already out there somewhere. You can become that version of you. So I think it doesn't really get talked about a whole lot because the whole TV show where they not only make fun of the established media and government and whatnot, and there's lots of little like Easter eggs where like at one point it's where Morty's son, I think it's Carl Jr. I'm not quite sure what his name is. Don't quote me on that, but his son's running away. At least I'm pretty sure it's his son. It's at some point in Rick and Morty where he's like running away, and he's like, blah blah blah. Christmas is a pagan holiday. Blah 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 blah. But like pretty much everything it says, if you actually look into it, is the truth. And when they're in the White House and I think it's pretty safe to say that it's an imitation of Barack Obama that's in the White House. Because I believe it came out when he was still president. But anyways, he has like this little laser thing, and he like guides it almost like a direct energy beam. And direct energy beams are also something that is out there that a lot of people don't necessarily know. It's just the kind of like The Simpsons a little bit, how The Simpsons is able to predict future events sometimes, or able to predict scores of. I believe they predicted a score of a Super Bowl at one point. But the point I'm trying to get at is that Rick and Morty, no matter who you are, you can enjoy at least some part of it. If you're a little kid, but if you're younger, you can enjoy the fact that it's fun animations and whatnot. And I'd say it's pretty, other than all the cussing and all that, it's pretty family friendly. If you're a person that's like a professor or whatever, well, specifically a scientist probably, or just a person knows about it, when they joke about Schrodinger's cat, or like you are thinking about as to how we could bring that into reality. And Rick and Morty, it's just, I'm really excited for season 4. I don't know if you guys saw the last trailer or not, but had something to do with it was like, it was Rick and Morty. There's like, we're not going to talk about anything relating to the actual season, because people are going to have high expectations or low expectations based on what we have, and this is just you know, they really break. I believe it's the third barrier or something. I'm not quite sure what it's called. When animation characters directly talk to you, it's breaking a certain barrier. But they did that, and it's just that there's no rules or expect. Well, I have expectations for it, but there's no set of like linear like way that people that are talking or think about what can happen next because there's infinite possibilities as to what could go on. Who's even to say that the Rick and Morty that we're following on different Rick and Mortys and we see a different Rick and Morty each time? Who's to say that we're still following the same Rick that toppled the government by turning the fiat currency that was worth one of itself to zero of itself? Who's to say that our original Rick and Morty didn't turn themselves into Cronenbergs? Who's to say that every time we watch the show, we're not watching a different Rick and Morty? And I personally feel like at the moment, I mean, I do love the storyline, but I just can't wrap my mind around any sort of ending to the show, which is another reason why it's one of my favorites because although it does appear to have somewhat of a storyline, somewhat, they Rick and Morty go on adventures, and of course you probably already knew that. If you haven't watched the series, I would highly recommend it. But yeah, season 4, I feel like it's going to be. Here's my predictions for season 4. Here's the T. So the T is that Rick and Morty are going to this is raw, by the way. I've never thought about predictions. Rick and Morty are going. I feel like there's going to be a good episode or two where they are almost confined. It's not going to be your typical like Rick just pulls out his portal gun or Rick can make a portal gun. I feel like Rick is going to become somehow kind of how Jerry like made him dumbed him down so he's not considered a terrorist or whatever, making fun of the TSA and what we have in America. And they dumbed him down. But if he were to be dumbed down around Morty, would Morty be able to? I think he could step up to the plate, but I think there might be a small little arc where I feel like we're going to see more growth out of Morty out of this season. And with that being said, I feel like since we're going to have more growth out of Morty, we're also going to see more of an empathetic Rick. Rick, I mean, it'd be pretty hard for me as well if I'm constantly shifting realities and I'm seeing the same person just at a different reality. And it doesn't matter if, the one that's from my original reality is there or not, probably because it was some freak accident what happened to his original Morty. We know that the Rick that we think we're following has had multiple Mortys. But I'm not sure if at any point in time it actually talks about what happened to the original Morty. And with that being said, I'm gonna and you know, I really think that it's a great show, of course. And kind of talking about quantum mechanics a little bit more. So there's an Earth here, Earth an infinite amount of distance to the left, and infinite amount of distance to the right. And it's calculable, but I'm not quite sure the exact numbers. It's just so massive that even if I were able to say it, none of us would be able to comprehend how actually far away it is. But out there somewhere is another Earth similar to ours, or vastly different than ours. And I personally like to flirt with that idea as well in manifesting who you want to become and what you want to do. For example, who's to say that when I started this video that I didn't start talking about, who's to say that I didn't make this video about Naruto or another show that I like? Something that you'll find out about me later on at some point is that I like to flirt with the idea of there being multiple possible scenarios for what's happening right now. I talked with a friend of mine by the name of Matthew, and he personally doesn't really know a whole lot about quantum mechanics, and I don't either. It seems like the more I think I understand, the more confused I get, which is sort of with everything in life. It seems like the more you learn about something, learn about life, the more clueless you become. And it's almost a paradigm, a paradox, not a paradigm. But also, Rick and Morty also isn't afraid. Kind of like what I said earlier, there's no boundaries. It's almost as if nobody's safe to be made fun of. They kind of have like sort of like a South Parkish vibe to them, how they aren't afraid to essentially be taken off the air for some of the content they have. Because for me personally, knowing about some of the stuff that they talk about, like why would I guess beings in this universe that don't want everybody to succeed, why would they want a show that actually encourages free thought and encourages people to sort of think differently? And it's just really interesting. That's one of the reasons why I like it. It's so counter all the other shows that are out there. And I feel like originally I didn't watch Rick and Morty till about season 2 or maybe season 3 was out, I'm not quite sure. Actually, the first episode I watched was when he was overthrowing the galactic government by turning the currency from one of itself to zero of itself, which, by the way, can and I believe will happen someday in America, which is why you need to invest in gold and silver. Anyways, I just want to thank you guys for listening. Just really quickly, I really appreciate you guys coming to support me, and it really means a lot. But back to Rick and Morty. And also, um, if you know me personally, reach out to me if you want to see more Rick and Morty slash quantum mechanics videos. I'm going to be very, very committed to creating content here. I'm going to try and post daily. I sort of have you can see behind me, sort of have my little studio in a sense. And just whatever content you guys want, just make sure you let it be known. Feel free to like and subscribe if you're listening to me on either YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, whatever. And I love you guys. I want to share my knowledge with everybody, and I also want to learn something. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think I could learn something in the process. Because for me personally, if I can make a mistake and learn from it and be a better person, or learn how to do something that I thought was the best way, but learn a completely better way, then why not? And what greater place to do that than online content where I can network with others? Anyways, off topic. I'm going to continue the live stream, but I'm going to turn off the podcast for right now. I'm going to put it into another part, so excuse me if you're watching live. So just take about 30 seconds. Okay. It's loading. And welcome back to the Zach Regale Experience 369. I'm your host, Zach. And we're just still continuing to talk about Rick and Morty and quantum mechanics. It's just kind of, me pandering on something I do a lot about the show and quantum mechanics at the same time. And I might even get into something else. Who knows? Because Rick and Morty really talks about lots of aspects of not only our world, but what can possibly be in the future as well. And yeah. Something that I also like about Rick and Morty. Honestly, I really love dark humor. I really love they just say the most messed up things. It's really great, to be honest. I love it when they say Trying to think. Oh, when there's the alien when Rick and Morty are running. Oh, two things. So when Rick's Rick the grandfather, imagine if your grandfather like made you do this. He like essentially forced you to shove a massive seed up your bunghole and go through international security or through an airport with it. And afterwards, you're like running you're probably traumatized. He's got not one but two of these massive things like way up there, as Rick calls it. And you're just running, which probably is like high key like cutting up your insides. And that and by itself is probably like very like whoa for me. And afterwards he's like running and then he sees the quote unquote alien vaping what looks like another life form, and then they break the container that it's in, like the fluid, and it just the species just ages very quickly and dies. Like that really shows you that like whether or not I personally do believe that there are other forms of life out there other than humans, potentially on Earth as well. But that just really puts into perspective that you know that fluid was keeping that being essentially not only to a point where it could be alive, but it was somehow causing a sort of hot, quote unquote, high feeling toward this other alien. Like maybe the sort of alien that was like being, quote unquote, vaped, maybe like his life form and like causes like adverse reactions with the other life form. And there's a lot of dark scenes in Rick and Morty. Like when Rick and Morty on Morty's adventure and he's in the bathroom and I believe it's the king. I'm not quite sure. It's been a while since I'll have to rewatch Rick and Morty here soon. But hey Chandler Hayes, thank you for sorry I'm new to this streaming thing, but hello, welcome to the chat. Shout out to Chandler Hayes. Sure, she's got some great content or lots of love. So thank you for joining. Thank you for everybody for listening. But yeah, and so this is very graphic and honestly it probably triggers some people. And it's just the amount of dark humor that's in it is just very like especially this scene. I know I'm about to talk about this scene, but the scene where it's Morty's adventure and he's in the bathroom and I believe it's the king walks in and he's essentially like, hey, I've personally been approached by a guy as well at night playing Pokemon Go. If you're young and watching this, this was like the week Pokemon Go came out for all the hype was there. Well, not the week before, the week of, but I was at a park that in my area it's known as quote unquote a gay park, but I didn't know this until way later. But I was there at night, and this guy came up to me in a similar fashion to like what the alien did in the to Morty, and he's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" or whatever, and he's just like making like solid advances on me. I was just like, "I'm out of here." Well, I wasn't like that, but like I essentially just left because. But in Morty's scenario, he just like shoved him into the stall. And I was like, yeah. He's like, I want you, boy. And he's like essentially trying to like this. I'm sorry, this is not funny, but this is just showing you that like the amount of like grotesque humor and dark humor. It's just like I just love that stuff. I don't find the act of it being funny whatsoever. But like the fact that they like did that and like Morty like defended himself and just like pulled out the chopper. He slammed his head on the toilet seat. And then that's how he ended up like solving that scenario or whatever. And it was just like Morty was not only capable of defending himself in a potentially life-threatening scenario, he's somewhere he doesn't know. He's got to prove himself to Rick because he's like, I don't know if you can tell or you can't tell, but I'm like pulling on my britches, my joggers. But like Morty is like got to prove himself. There's no way he can back out of this, even though he had just had a traumatizing experience. And it's just like wow, like credits to the writers for doing that. And then I'm pretty sure Morty comes out the bathroom and Rick's like, "What's wrong with you?" or whatever, and Morty's like, "Nothing." And it's just like, and Rick, I'm pretty sure Morty like, this is probably terrible that I can't remember this. Talking about Rick and Morty, can't remember what happened, but at one point, I'm pretty sure it's a king, and he like shoots the guy before he leaves or whatever, and it's just like there you go. As a viewer, I was like, wow, satisfaction. I mean, me personally, I probably would have beat the guy up a little bit more. I don't necessarily know if I agree with like executing the guy on the spot. Probably make him suffer a little bit, but just kidding. I don't know. But yeah. And then there's the whole just kind of reminiscing. Thanks. But and oh, and then that gets into like, so I don't know if you were in here earlier, Chandler Hayes, but I was talking about quantum mechanics and the viewers listening on podcast. But so the whole idea that sort of, I'm wearing a T-shirt right now that has Rick and Morty. It's when he is stepping out of his. He's essentially stepping into his car battery. He took like a little like ship. Well, actually, I don't really remember how they get into this little ship thing, but they sees Rick's car battery is like messed up. He's got to go and fix it. And so Morty's like, why don't you just get a new one or whatever? Like Morty being completely ignorant to the fact that uh that Rick has a free energy device, not necessarily free, a wireless. Well, actually, I wouldn't even call it wireless. I don't even know what I'd categorize it as. But he has this device that like he essentially powers his car. Well, not his car, his saucer. I don't even know what I categorize it as actually. His flying transportation. He powers it through this device that has a whole multiverse. Essentially, it is slavery, and you can compare exactly what they do in where how they like push the levers or whatever to, I'm not sure if that's the mini verse or whatever, but you can compare that to banking or other forms in our life on Earth, and like really is almost making fun of people that are essentially not like Rick in the position to be able to go on these cool adventures or even have a regular job. Like Rick does whatever he wants. The laws of the universe, essentially, he's able to, well, I wouldn't say the laws, but he's essentially able to do whatever he wants. Partially because of his portal gun and his knowledge. And he goes inside the car battery, but oh yeah, the way my shirt, for those of you listening, is Rick and Morty flipping off. It means peace among worlds to people that are actually, and essentially the universe he created that's powering his car. And that really gets into something. Like, so let's just say that the creator, God, whatever you want to call what created everything, or whether or not we're in a simulation, it created us. But who is to say that we aren't? Who is to say that gaming is getting to the point now where we're probably like 5 to 10 years away from making video games that have AI, not AI, what are they called? Um, gosh, the name of this is escaping me at the moment. CPU, or like controller played units or whatever. I forget what they're called. But we're getting to the point where at some point in time, when you play video games, the computer is going to be. Thank you, Chandler. I'll have more live streams like this as well. Have a great night, and hopefully I see you soon. Thanks for stopping by. But so yeah, where was I? See you soon. Wow, I just completely lost my train of thought. I know I was talking about the miniverse. Oh yeah, but who's to say that we aren't just like a sort of that was created by essentially a higher dimensional being, and we are just living in sort of a video game? Because essentially, sooner or later, we're going to have video games where there's going to be computers interacting with each other, probably that are that are able to have cognitive thought and able to think for themselves. And with that being said, like, who's to say we aren't that, and we're just creating simulation with inside a simulation with inside another simulation? Like a lot of the aspects on Rick and Morty, you think about like lots of different things. Some of the things that actually go on in the show are stuff that you could actually think about and theorize about. But the whole like him you and like that ties in the reason why I talked about all that, those theories or whatever, quote unquote theories, was because let's just say it's kind of like what happened in Rick's multiverse. He created that multiverse, but who say that multiverse won't discover the same technology he's extorting them from? And trying to adjust my light a little bit. I don't know if that's a little better or not. But so yeah, who's to say that um that multiverse won't create a miniverse and so on and so forth that they will be able to power their city with instead of using slave labor. And like that can be said about us. Who said that we aren't going to create some sort of um software or whatnot that is able to like I don't know. I kind of already talked about it a little bit. Who's to say that we aren't doing that as well? And it's very interesting. And Rick and Morty, I personally believe if enough people watch it, well, it's already a massively popular show. I used to be too cool to watch it, actually. I was that guy. I'm a person that does not follow the societal trends. And if I'm actually going to get involved in something that's quote unquote popular, it's for a good reason. And Rick and Morty is a prime example of that. There's a reason why an old friend of mine, who I'm still friends with, got me a shirt that is Rick and Morty that I still wear to this day. And that I not only have that shirt, but I got this shirt. And that person actually got me a wallet as well. Very grateful that that person did that because not only I needed a new wallet, but I was really thoughtful of them. And yeah, so kind of so the whole thing about there being infinite amount of Ricks, an infinite amount of Mortys, and infinite amounts of me, and infinite amounts of the listeners that are listening, is that who are we to decide that this isn't happening an infinite amount of times across an infinite number of realities as well? Because you know it specifically says in quantum mechanics, which is the the title of this, or part of the title, that it says that that is a phenomena that actually happens. And since we are an arrangement of particles among onto other things, that we could be elsewhere as well. Who's to say that me recording this, I don't imagine I have like a brownish, I have like a lightish brown hair. Who's to say that there isn't a version of me that has blonde hair? Version of me that doesn't have black hair, that has red hair. Parts of my beard at times have red hair. And who's to say that that wouldn't be, trying to think of another color that's not very conventional. Who's to say that that isn't bleach blonde hair? And I just think it's very, very interesting in the aspect that you could essentially shift. I'm gonna make YouTube and podcasts at some point talking about how you can shift, how you can be the version of you want to be. It's not, you know, you focus on what you want and it appears, but there is a process of how you can. And if you guys are interested, I'll definitely have content on that. But I kind of picked two somewhat somewhat similar topics: Rick and Morty and quantum mechanics. Because quantum mechanics is essentially one of the things that makes Rick and Morty popular, because people are able to, you know, they're able to hop through one reality to another. That also raises the question, and I think about it, like, there's two of one person and one reality, then wow, I actually had a couple questions. For some reason, I wanted to tie twins into that aspect, but then I was like, no, that like happens like at conception or slightly after that, and meiosis, or all that, reproductive stuff. But you know what I mean. But there's probably not a correlation there. But what would happen? Because in movies, or I'm really quoting movies right now. In movies, they have like it's almost seems as if you cannot have two versions of yourself at one time. Well, I guess that's more or less like a past and a future version of yourself. So I guess it would. I guess there isn't really an issue with. There wouldn't really be an issue. Well, of course there'd be. It'd be very weird or whatever, and it'd raise lots of questions. But if there was two versions of yourself living at your house, what would that would mean? This is just crazy talk I'm talking about right now. I love it. Just thinking about different things relating to a TV show that is pretty awesome in my opinion. Um, and I think I'm going to end the podcast here. I'm still going to continue the live stream if you're watching. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you guys in the next episode. And thank you for watching this entire time. If you want me to talk about something that I sort of talked on a little bit, I will definitely talk on it more, but I'm not sure what you want to hear. So if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about, I'd be more than happy to talk about it if you'll just leave a comment. And if you don't leave a comment, I'll probably just continue talking on the lines of what I'm talking about a little bit. Well, I'll give you a little bit to think about that, and I'm going to start up another podcast and go from there. Alrighty. Sorry, I'm just somebody important messaged me. Making money moves with my brothers. Anyways, so I guess I'm just gonna keep on talking and continuing to get off topic as well. Sorry about that. Might have been a little bit gross for you to witness, me itching my armpit. Sorry about that. But welcome back to the Zachary Gale experience. This is Zach 369. Kind of did that out of order. But yeah, we're just having more talk about Rick and Morty, quantum mechanics. Um, I'm going to do a lot of these live, so some of the content is not necessarily directed towards the podcast. So I apologize. But if you'd like to see a video with it as well, you can visit my YouTube. It's the same as my podcast, the Zachary Gale Experience 369, and most of my social media is under that as well. So feel free to see what I've got going on elsewhere in my personal life. But yeah, so continuing where we left off. Well, I didn't necessarily leave off anywhere. Just kind of talking about the multiverse and the miniverse. I'm sort of just talking about whatever comes to mind. I've came to realization that it'll make me a better speaker in public if I do stuff in one take instead of preparing for it ahead of time. And also helps me be present in the moment. Helps me be aware of my surroundings. What matters now. Whoever's listening or watching right now, why don't you just be aware of your breathing? Give a good inhale and smile, and exhale all the way. Fill your lungs and completely diminish your lungs. This is actually a breathing technique that I learned about in my public speaking class. Well, I learned about it before that, but I have a speech tomorrow that I probably should prepare for. But I'm gonna do how I did this video. I mean, I already know what I'm gonna talk about anyway, so it's not gonna be an issue. But so yeah. Um Oh, also Chandler Hayes also earlier said that the cube that I was referring to earlier definitely got Morty definitely got justice. This is an earlier podcast, but the cube that tried to essentially rape Morty got justice on the cube by shooting, which I also agree. And yeah, so I believe that I'm trying to think of what aspect of Rick and Morty to talk about because there's essentially infinite amount of things to talk about Rick and Morty. I could just do a whole video about theorizing about what Rick and Morty could do. I guess you could do that with any series, but Rick and Morty. Well, I guess I've been sort of only focusing on Rick and Morty, but there also is Summer, Jerry, um, Beth, Bird Person, Mr. Meeseeks, and others as well. But let's talk about Mr. Meeseeks. So Mr. Meeseeks is Rick created him. If you're unfamiliar about or you don't remember what Mr. Meeseeks is, there is an episode um where Jerry wants like something. I think I might be getting this confused with the episode with Snowball, but Rick wanted something to help him out or something. He ended up using the Meeseeks box to take. I'm not sure how many strokes off of his golf game, but essentially what happened was is Jerry basically demanded Rick to give him something to help. And Beth wanted to feel like I think she wanted to feel like a more complete whole woman, and she eventually got she caught feelings and wanted to get intimate with the Meeseeks, and upon her feeling more, I think she wanted to feel more like a woman. I'm not quite sure exactly what she asked for, but upon when she was leaning into kiss, when she was leaning into kiss the Meeseeks, he went poof, and I mean, I really probably did a lot to like mess with her head. Like I was just about to kiss like a Meeseeks. I was about to cheat on my husband. It was a terrible thing to do. But and then did Morty? I think if Morty did anything. I can't think of it right now. But yeah, like he's able to create essentially well, he's created multiple beings, which kind of raises the question as if like what are we capable of creating ourselves? I'm not necessarily saying not getting into the ethics of this or anything. So we as sorry, I'm trying to adjust the light so it doesn't seem like I'm in a very dark cave or anything. So you guys can still see me. But yeah. Um he creates life not only in his car battery and the Meeseeks box. Well, I don't know if I'd call the Meeseeks alive. They move around like living beings, but they essentially it's very interesting. They essentially just poof into existence for one task, and the longer that they are in existence, the more pain that they are in. And it's really like, wow, wow. And it's just like, I don't know. Like it's essentially slave labor. Well, I mean they do that a lot in the show. Not saying it's a good thing, but they definitely take advantage where they can. But yeah, like then the whole thing about the Misi creating more Meesinks to help him with what he wanted to accomplish. Like they essentially could create. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of limit to the amount of Meesinks that can be made at once. And now that I think about it, we're just gonna get into like theorizing like weird things you could do if you could do this in real life. What if like like somebody made a Meesinks, somebody like broke into Rick's garage, maybe like a Rick from another dimension that like lost his portal gun, or somebody that hates Rick, or somebody that's actually able to get away with something like that, or just got Rick at the right moment, or some burglar who broke into their house like when they're out on vacation and didn't trip any of Rick's like security things or whatever somehow because he's an idiot. And he finds the Meeseeks box. I don't know if they destroyed the Meeseeks box or not. I think about it. Yeah, I think they. I don't remember. Well, let's just say let's go from the scenario where there is a Meeseeks box. What if somebody were to like, or like in general, if somebody is able to do this? Because I believe that we do have the ability to clone humans. Because not only are we able to clone sheep, cows, pretty much massive living beings, and I believe that they just because of ethical reasons and for their own benefit that they don't bring this sort of thing to light until they essentially have to because there's going to be a lot of ethical things and there's going to be lots of focus on that if that were to come to light. I recently watched the movie Us with one of my best, well, probably my best friend, And yeah, really. By the way, it's a great movie. Would 10 out of 10 Zach Gale Experience 369 rating. Very hard to get. But yeah, they essentially have. I don't want to. Actually, I'm not going to spoil the movie. Well, actually, the trailer pretty much says it. There's essentially clones of people in the movie, and I'll only talk about the clone aspect. But I'd say the Meeseek, the Meeseeks are all clones of each other. And that gets into, does a Meeseek have a soul? Does a Meeseek have a will? Hmm. To answer those questions, I probably would say that I don't know, because I personally believe that only whatever created everything can essentially give. Well, to start this off, I believe we're multi-dimensional beings living a temporary human experience, and to somehow, I don't think that they do have a soul. There's no way. There's no Rick isn't above the creator, even though he denounces whatever created everything all the time until the moment he is moments before death. But so I don't think they have a soul, and I feel like the longer they live, the more they start realizing. They even say it that their existence is pain. They're essentially brought there for one specific purpose, and if they don't create the purpose, I'm pretty sure they feel physical pain, yeah. But that also probably messes with them psychologically. Like if you were to, if you, let's just say you were called to a certain place against your will. This has actually happened to me one time. I had to miss school for this. Not going to get into that now, because it's personal. But you're, if you were forced to be somewhere against your will almost instantaneously, well, it wouldn't be instantaneously, but there's somewhere you don't want to be, the longer you're there, it's sort of, if you really don't want to be there, it's sort of similar to physical pain because you're like, oh, this is such a drag. I don't want to be here. Um, and maybe I don't know. I wonder if they're able to think. I wonder if they're able to think in a way where. I wonder if they're able to think in a way where they are able to have their own like motives beyond being there. Because towards the end, they went to pretty extreme measures for Rick to not Rick for Jerry to get some strokes off of his ball game. They took a hostage and didn't care about any other repercussions. Not like that anybody in that family really cares about normal repercussions, anyways. But in that family really cares about normal repercussions, anyways. But that raises the question as if they were forced to exist, at what point would the pain of living be manifested or transmutated into something either to take them out of existence or to have more sinister plans? This, and I got really off topic. What if somebody were to break in and to essentially make Mr. Meeseeks and force them to make another Mr. Meeseeks box, and they had like a whole factory making Mr. Meeseeks boxes, and they're making an army of Meeseeks. I mean, we you could maybe conquer the world. Who knows? In Rick and Morty, of course. Um, the government agencies listening to me. I was talking on Rick and Morty. Don't need to suicide me or anything like that. But yeah, it's just very interesting. And I'll just stop the podcast there. Thank you so much for listening to Mr. Meesinks. I'm Mr. Meesinks. Look at me. But yeah, I'm gonna probably talk about one thing at a time for about 15 minutes or so. So we kind of keep it new and fresh. Just gonna quickly title this. Alrighty. 11:33 where I live. Don't give a fuck. Kidding. But yeah, just give me 1 second. I forgot to loading. Want to talk about next. Still loading. Oh, and also, I'm not sure if you're the person watching the live stream, if you're interested at all in making money or whatnot, but if you download Robinhood, you can invest in stocks. And if we both invest, oh, there's just a call. I actually lost $2 today on it, but that's okay. It'll probably make me money by Friday. Anyways, if you want to join, I'll have a link in the description of this. If you use the link and you sign up, we both get a free stock. It can be any sort of stock from $5 to $300. So there's that. Know all about my money moves. But yeah, actually I got distracted, which happens a lot. You may or may not know. Just gonna quickly start it up really quick. Sorry, my cousin posted something weird, and I somehow accidentally found myself navigating through my phone. So I was like, this is kind of Welcome back to the Zachary Gale Experience 369. I am your host, and we're going to be talking about some more Rick and Morty stuff. I'm in the basement at the moment, so I kind of just echo throughout the whole house. Oh my dad's probably trying to sleep. Oh well. Oh yeah. So I just got done talking about Mr. Meeseeks. Let's talk about something a little bit more cool. Let's talk about Morty. So Morty's a very interesting character. I feel like Morty has the potential for, excuse me, I'm plugging my pink Himalayan salt lamp, but he has lots of potential, I believe. I believe that Morty could someday, because of all his adventures and whatnot. Ooh, that's pretty. Would you look at that? Does it look like I'm holding like fire or something? Oh. But yeah, I always lick the salt lamps because Himalayan pink salt. I'm not sure if you're supposed to lick these lamps. That could be very dangerous. I did it anyways. But pink Himalayan salt is the most alkaline substance on the world. And yeah. Now that I've got that out the way, because I do feel water jiggling around in my body. I overhydrated earlier. Actually, I don't really think you can overhydrate unless you drink like a gallon very quickly or whatever. Anyways, talk about Morty. I feel like at some point in time, during the show, Rick and Morty. Well, it also gets into like, is Rick and Morty going to end after, let's say, like 10 seasons? Is there going to be a definitive end to Rick and Morty? Or is the creator, for as long as they're alive, going to just make episodes until they essentially can't, or they get kicked off the air? I kind of split on this. But let's just say that regardless, that at some point Morty sort of becomes the alpha player in the show. Let's say like Rick, like there's like either a time loop or something happens to Rick where he's permanently not like the Rick that we know. And let's just say that Morty then has to like assume position of his grandfather. Let's not even talk about hypotheticals here. That's something I need to focus on as well, as being grounded in the present moment. So Morty currently, he skips school all the time. He has all of the. I mean, if Grandpa wasn't leaving his home, or if they didn't know about Grandpa somehow, they probably would think he was out doing drugs or something. And Morty, I feel like even though he doesn't go to school, he's very awakened in that aspect of what he knows about the universe, in his universe. And the nobody exists on purpose. I don't really know what he says this summer, but it goes something like nobody exists on purpose. I don't really know, but it's kind of like wise. Like every day is a good day, and even though you may be going through something that's very bad or whatever, it can only get better, and it can always get better. It can get worse, yes, but it's how you perceive that. Somebody in your family dies, for example, you can let that get you down. You can mope on it. Of course, grieve your loved one, but also how you perceive that will be how it how you either grow or learn from it. You can use that as something to celebrate their life and be happy, not necessarily be happy, but be grateful the amount of time you're spend with them, and grieve for a little bit, but realize that everything happens for a reason, and maybe that was supposed to help you grow closer to your family, grow as a person or whatever. Or you could let that impact the present for a very long time. And I'll do videos on this at some point, but how you perceive everything around you is very important. I feel like how Morty perceives his grandfather Rick, I feel like he perceives him as somewhat as I don't necessarily want to call him a hero to Morty, is it definitely seems like Rick has gotten his Morty killed a couple times. But at the same time, I would much rather go on adventures like Morty than be in math class with Mr. What's his face. That's okay with you being extremely sleep deprived, dreaming about a girl you like, while thinking you're grabbing her quote unquote Jessica's, when you're just grabbing his tits, and that's okay with that. And I think he's in the fourth grade. I'm not sure. I don't really remember what grade he's in. But they're not really learning anything. Not like public school really teaches you anything valuable, anyways. They don't teach you how to balance your budget. They don't teach you how to invest. They don't teach you how to actually question what you're learning and think critically. They teach you just obey. Just obey, obey, obey. They don't value education. They value getting funds, in my opinion. But he, I don't know, me personally, might have a different opinion. I would much rather go on adventures that are potentially life-threatening. The amount of adrenaline rushes that Morty has, no wonder why, like, some of the things he does just seem like boring, mundane tasks. And, I don't know. I feel like that Morty is very I feel like Morty wants his grandfather to be more loving to him. It's hard for Rick to be sentimental to his family, in my opinion, primarily because there's infinite numbers of them, so why focus love and affection on a singular one of them? But when at some point in time, he might have to essentially shift realities and get out of there using his portal gun. But I feel like if Rick were to become more sentimental, I think for him it might be a sign of weakness. Maybe. I wonder when his birthday is. I believe that when you're born during the year has a lot to do with your personality and how you interact with other people. But anyways, he's very secretive. Not secretive, secretive of his emotions. He reminds me of myself a little bit. At times I have difficulty expressing my emotions. And even though I am very close to certain individuals, it doesn't necessarily mean that in the past, it's not this way anymore. It doesn't mean that I essentially know where to stop and what's too far. I'll just say my zodiac sign's a Scorpio, and at times I can essentially sting somebody, and it can be very venomous and very lethal for that person. And Rick, it seems like he could potentially be a Scorpio as well. That's thinking too deep into the show. Because if he goes on a rampage, it can be very lethal. But I feel like if he was able to open up to Morty a little bit more and maybe nurture him, because it seems like he's partially using Morty as a shield because of their different vibrational states. Morty's is essentially the opposite of his. That if he would focus on I mean, that could put himself in jeopardy. So I see why he doesn't do it at the moment. But maybe someday it'd be in both of their best interests if he were to sort of teach Morty some of the advanced things that he's learned. Or actually, I feel like Rick would be the type of person that after he dies, he would have sort of a collection of either his own memories or like a slideshow of the most important stuff that he knows that he would essentially let Morty inherit. So he could be able to continue on with his quote unquote Szechuan sauce, crave, or whatever else the purpose of all what he does is. Maybe he'll gift him his knowledge when he dies. That actually makes a lot of sense because he can't have Morty become extremely close to his vibrational state. My hair looks like how it did when I was like it's like swooped to the side like sort of like a Justin Bieber haircut and like I had hair like that when I was in like elementary school. Anyways, um I feel like kind of like what I was just saying. I feel like if Rick were to be a little bit more intimate with Morty, he would I don't think it would make him smarter. I think it would be help him with his decision making to trust his grandfather more. Because you also have to remember that Rick, not that, excuse me, Morty was going to kill his grandfather. He didn't when they were at the when Rick was about to collapse the intergalactic government, Morty was holding a gun. He was like shaking his hand very rapidly at Rick, and on the side he didn't see the sticky note that says "In standoff, shoot me" or whatever. He just straight shot him. He was ready to kill his grandfather because he had pissed him off. I forget exactly why he did it. He was verbally abusing him is what he was doing. That's what I remember. But I feel like if Rick were to sort of connect with him more, they would be able to have sort of better bonds and better compatibility with what they're able to accomplish a little bit smoother. Because if they were actually that sort of brings them closer to the same wavelength. Because the more you connect with the person, even though you two may be very like far away or whatever, you can still sort of feel how that person sort of how they're vibrating. You can sort of still feel the vibes from that person. And with that being said, just your knowledge doesn't necessarily mean you vibrate higher or anything. But also, with that being said, it doesn't necessarily mean you vibrate lower. Maybe their individuality is the reason why Rick needs Morty to be Morty the way he is currently. It's why he can't jeopardize anything or be very sentimental with him. That sort of feeds into my theory how if Rick were to die, that he would gift or he's probably preparing something for Morty for in the event that he does die. That he will be able to prepare him to be essentially better than he was. But also, Rick has to be very careful because he doesn't want that information falling into the wrong hands. We're talking about a being that one of himself, well, first of all, multiple of themselves decided to get together and form a damn government, that word, and essentially hide from a government. So they became a government. My gerontology teacher used to say the government that way. Matthew Kelly was his name. So I'm pretty sure that was his name. Yeah, and they formed their own government. I'm not going to do that every time. But yeah, they formed their own government to hide from the government. And well, I guess it wasn't just Rick; it was Rick and Morty because they're synonymous with each other. I think that's the word for that. So they formed their own government, and they were hiding from the government. And the whole thing is that these two people, Rick essentially by himself, with Morty's help somewhat in the standoff, were able to topple a whole intergalactic stranglehold. Comparing to Star Wars, they just took on, the Death Star, Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader, depending on like what point of the Republic you're talking about, or the whole everything. They took on the whole Jedi Order, on pretty much everybody at once just by toppling. See, that's the thing about Rick and Morty. If the Sith were actually, or whoever wanted to, was actually, I guess you could say, intelligent. I'm not saying they're not. They would have just done what Rick did. Change the currency that's worth one of itself to zero of itself. Because you really can't do anything in that scenario. You either have to A, issue a new currency, which of course, somebody's gonna have to distribute, which nobody's gonna want to do because nobody's getting paid. And it just completely messes everything up. And Rick is just a genius with how he did that. And whoever's listening, I encourage you to either listen to my other content about if I have it up at the time. Because I have it up in some places, but not everywhere, about fractional reserve banking. It's the banking system in the US as well as in every other country except for North Korea, Cuba, and Venezuela. In 2008, there was more countries to that list, but we all invaded after 9/11. That list included, uh, I would say the three that I just said that are currently, which we're either at war with or close to regime change or whatever. Was so Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya, and Yemen. There's 8 total in 2008 that did not have centralized banking, which is essentially what the galactic currency was. Well, it's a fiat-based currency. If it was gold or silver, they couldn't just make it worth zero. This is always going to have value. It's not only used in computers and used for other things such as precious like gifts and whatnot. It looks shiny, so of course somebody's gonna want to put a part of their quote unquote rock collection or whatever. We go back to like um we go back to like an era where like everything just goes off the grid and like people are trading and we're like semi Neanderthal. People are gonna want the shinier rocks. And like it's just like if you really watch what happened in watch what happens in Rick and Morty, a lot of it could have I'm not saying a lot of it, but definitely the whole toppling the government by changing the currency of one of itself to zero of itself. It's definitely going to happen at some point. It happened to the pound before US dollar was the dominant currency because they're both fiat currency, meaning that it's debt based. Another fiat currency is monopoly money. Base currency is stuff that is a currency that holds its value throughout the years. And I'm not going to talk much about this in this video or this podcast because we're talking about Rick and Morty. But since the Federal Reserve was enacted in 1913, the US dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power. And that's fiat debt-based currency for you. But anyways, yeah, just checking the time. I'm going to talk a little bit more on the live stream, but I'm going to stop podcasting for right now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Hope to stop by. I really appreciate listening. Again, hope you have a fantastic day or evening. And don't forget to smile. But yeah, I'm going to sit down because I've been standing up for more than the time. Actually, I'm not going to stand down. I'm not weak. Can't believe I was about to do that for a second. But yeah, be cool if I could see the name of whoever's watching me because you have been with me for a while. So I could shout you out or whatever. See if you have any good content. But yeah, I mean, it's just very interesting, Rick and Morty. I'm really excited. It's my birth month when it comes out in November. Hopefully, I'll be able to watch it with my best friend. We shall see. If not, I'll be alright watching it by myself, anyways. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing lots more content. I'll probably do some more live streams. Honestly, the reason why I live stream was because I wasn't quite sure on how to actually record a video. I mean, I looked at a couple of things. I wasn't really trying to watch a video on how to do a video. Like, I know that I've recorded videos off my phone before. I'm pretty sure I can live stream and just upload it afterwards. And plus, I like talking live because I get feedback, which is something that's important. And people can give me topics to talk about. I'm going to have a stream schedule here soon. Today and yesterday, I've been increasingly, what's the word? I think I look good. Anyway, sorry. I've been increasingly pouring about being in the present and not letting things that I hear from people or stuff in the past or in the future, for that matter, really get to me. I've really been focusing on what's important now And my brother was even like, "Wow, you seem different, Zach. What'd you do?" Why I went kind of shaved a little bit. Had a lot bigger of a beard, not necessarily full, but it was a lot longer and really curly. But yeah, I mean, it's very important. I'm gathering lots of research lately, which is one of the reasons why I haven't been very consistent. I don't even I really haven't posted a lot to YouTube other than videos on how to make hemp milk, banana milk, stuff like that. I'm gonna be doing more videos on how to be self-sufficient and do those things as well here in the future. But so if you haven't, I'd really appreciate if you'd subscribe, turn on the bell, give it a like. It really helped me. I'm gonna do this a lot. I not only like Rick and Morty, I like lots of other stuff too. And I really enjoy talking and teaching people stuff and learning from people as well. But you might already be subscribed already. Who knows? If you are, thank you for listening and being around. As odds are in that scenario, I probably know you or whatever. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna be doing videos on sort of um well, I'm expanding the sphere of influence of people I call my friends because I recently ditched my old friend group because they're being very unproductive and not helping me out a whole lot. So I am surrounding myself with successful people and have similar interests as me. And I'm really growing as a person. And that'll really show here on the channel. I'm going to be very committed to having more live streams. I mean, maybe not necessarily in this dark room with, this, I guess you can't see it move, but um, this blanket in the middle of my room. I'm almost completely moved to the basement because I don't want to go into debt and I really want to create content and I want to create better bonds with my family before I ultimately do move out. And I mean, I do want to stay in my state, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind moving away. But I definitely would want to own at least something here, so that way when I come back, I would have a place to stay. Well, I guess I could just, stay here. Well, it depends on lots of things. I don't know. I'm mentioning that or whatever. But welcome to this stream. So talk about Rick and Morty and quantum mechanics. I'll kind of get back into that. I'm gonna quickly wrap up what I was talking about. But yeah, I'm gonna have more videos on quantum mechanics, more videos on Rick and Morty about why it's funny, why I like it. I may try to somehow have like I'm not really quite sure if you can do this or not, but have like me watching it and my reaction to watching it or whatever. That'd be really cool actually. So look into that. Thanks for the idea, guys and gals. But yeah, so I talked a lot about Rick's multiverse miniverse, how there's like how well Morty says it's a form of slave labor, and I kind of compared that to like how we could essentially do the same thing with video games, how we could create quote unquote sims or CPUs. Not C I don't know why I can't think of the name. I'm a big gamer. So computer players in the game that like NPCs is what they're called. I was calling them CPUs earlier, like computer processing units or whatever. But yeah, I say but yeah a lot. I'm also trying to notice what I do when I speak because this is sort of public speaking in a sense. So I can be more aware and become a better speaker. So I can also be more interesting and upbeat when I have these. But so yeah, back to Rick and Morty. It comes out in November. If you're not aware of that, my birth month. Um, let's talk about something new. On Whoever's new to the stream, first of all, thank you for watching. You're awesome. I'm wearing my Rick and Morty shirt. Sorry for the bad lighting quality. It was completely terrible quality with the light bulb up top. So I have, like what the, makeup people have when they're like, making makeup or whatever. And I don't know. I don't know how good it is or not. It's kind of dark, anyways. I mean, it's probably better that it's somewhat dark because you're probably watching it in a somewhat dark place. So it's probably fairly good for your eyes at the moment, not really hurting you or putting too much strain on them. And also rocking my taxation and stuff 20 point USA pin. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah. So I also talked about Mr. Meesinks earlier, the Meesinks box. There's lots of theorizing. I'm talking about Morty. What I thought would happen if Rick was more sentimental with him. And yeah, let's talk about something just fell. And I was not by it. Be like that sometimes. Let's talk about Beth. Beth, good old Beth. Um, hmm. Well, Beth is a very interesting character. She almost has the same level of what's the word? She's not afraid to do this similar level stuff that her father Rick does. How she when they went into the world where she left Tommy all those years ago. Well, before I talk about that, the type of toy she wanted, a bat that like beat people up or whatever. Trying to think. It was just like the darndest stuff. It's like trying to think of some of them. I think there was like stickers that like tracks the person or whatever. Just like some really like what the fuck stuff. I'm told that I like over enunciate the F when I say that word. Probably stop saying it or say less anyways, but I don't give a fuck. Anyways, yeah, so she not only that would have been a good topic to talk about earlier, how the guy has incest with the animals. Well, not incest, he fucks the animals or the creatures in there, and then eats he eats the offsprings to like gather protein. And I'm not sure if they eat or not as well. I think they might, and they did the same thing because they can only actually it's not incest because he can only actually it is incest because they're his kids. Oh my gosh, never mind. Anyways, but like Beth is just very. I think if given the opportunity to go on adventures, I think she might be more crazy than Eric. I think if given the opportunity, and she does go on those, she'd be very, very, very wild. And I think she'd surprise Rick with the sort of stuff that she do. Like, um, sorry, going out of vision there. If I'm saying that people are trying. That's a little better. But yeah, I feel like she was given a position of power to go on adventures. I think she might abuse it. I think she might go like trigger happy and like want more power. I'm trying to think of an example of a real life example of this. Sort of like how Julius Caesar Marcus Augustus, or is it Aurelius? No, it's Marcus Augustus. Aurelius was like the philosopher that was before him. Sort of like how Marcus Augustus was like a very strong leader, but he was seen as very cocky. And I'm not. I mean, I used to know lots about Roman history, but I kind of don't anymore. But I think one of the reasons why his best friend Brutus convinced the Senate to essentially stab him and form a coup d'état. So coup d'état is French for, I believe it means seizing of power. It's essentially a revolution. But I think that they believe that he was very power hungry, and that's almost as how I would envision Beth if she were to be able to go on adventures like Morty were able to. I feel like that she would start to form grudges, and she would I think she would want vengeance. I think she would get involved with some sort of intergalactic drama or whatever, and she'd, like, start hating, almost become not racist, but speciesist. I should tax that term, speciesist, for, like, for y before alien life becomes mainstream, so I get royalties every time. Anyways, yeah, I feel like she'd develop lots of hatred very easily. I feel like she would be very willing to get her hands dirty. And with that being said, I feel like mm, even though she'd be not afraid to get her hands dirty, I feel like she would also be very caring, like innocent creatures. Kind of similar to Morty on the adventure where he wanted to get his personal adventure where I spoke on this earlier. And he wanted to go on an adventure. I spoke about this episode earlier, is what I meant. And he wanted to help out the indigenous people. He wanted to get their treasure back. And then going to like giant jail because they killed a giant. And oh, by the way, they didn't read them their little people rights. I found that very funny. If the events that had happened to me in the past 6 months or so had happened, I'd have found that extremely more funny because that shit's so funny. And I feel like she would be very caring and wanting to help the little people. I feel like she's a person that hates with a passion for the evildoers, but for the people that can't necessarily defend themselves and stick up for themselves, she would want to help them. And I feel like that make Rick mad. I feel like he'd be like, "God damn it, Beth! Fucking told you not to help these people out. Now we're going to have to go to war with the Flamenior because you helped the Flameniors or something like that." And I feel like that could potentially get them caught up in the mix. But yeah, if I would like to see more of like family, not necessarily Rick and Morty level adventures, but like more like calm. And well, actually, Jerry's kind of be hard for Jerry to do that because he's not very manly, to put it not very bluntly. But I kind of want to see more family adventures where they like go like I don't know, go to like a dimension where they like instead of going camping, they all go on an adventure where they have to like essentially like survive basically and like be like raw and like uncut and like have to survive in the wilderness, build their own house from the ground up basically. But like time moves like very quickly. So they could be like so Rick could somehow like whip up a contraption to like make like beings and those beings could like essentially sounds really fucked up. You could have like sort of like a Meeseek, but like that something that doesn't die like a Meeseek does, but something that has a de- de- definite, not definite. I think that's the word. A finite lifespan, and they could reproduce with each other. So, and actually, this is just kind of like Age of Empires sort of stuff, like where you have like different city states fighting each other or whatever, and they're like, the warlord of their own city. That's like the sort of like level of thinking that like I don't know if they probably definitely wouldn't do anything near that, but I definitely wouldn't outrule some of the stuff that what they would do. And I don't know, Beth. It's just I'm just pumped for season 4. Kind of why I did a live stream on it in podcast. But also, I needed something to talk about, and I like talking about quantum mechanics too. So I was able to tie some of the knowledge that I have into something that people want to hear about, and that's pretty cool. You know, um, it's a very great time to be alive. Try to focus on the present moment, and not only to learn from what happened not only yesterday, but from your mistakes, and learn from the great moments that your successes, because that's all part of you and what you've been through and your experiences. And make sure you tell your loved ones you love them, even if they have, you know, I'm not very good example of this, but make sure you tell your family or someone you really care about how you really feel, even if you have not very good bonds. Go to your go to your most distant family member. Tell them how you feel or give them a hug. Because we only have a certain amount of time here, and at some point, we're all going to be gone. And it's not going to matter whether or not you're holding a grudge against that person. And, it's just, life is just too short for that kind of stuff. And also, do what you're really passionate about, regardless of what people think. Criticism is very important. And with that being said, give me criticism. If you thought that this stream sucked, if the lighting is bad, feel free to let me know. And I'm probably gonna just talk for about like at the time. Okay, for my time on my laptop's off, but I forgot. It's still something 16. I'll probably talk for like between 5 and 10 more minutes. But I really appreciate it if you subscribe if you haven't already. I know I said that already, but when I'm able to see and visualize like what I'm manifesting, and I affirm what I'm visualizing already and affirming in my mind, when I see the reflection of that, this adds to the visualization in my mind, and it deepens. So I'm able to have more of that and focus on and embody what it takes to complete my goals. But yeah. Also, probably have something that you could learn at some point. Oh yeah. Definitely gonna be doing self-reliant videos here in the future. Want to my gardening buddy, or what I consider my gardening buddy. We may or may not have a garden at some point, depending on where we stand. If not, I'm going to have one regardless. and I'll have self-reliant videos on how to like have massive yields or whatever. Well, not right away, of course. It's gonna be. I have knowledge on how to do that, but of course, like in practice, like I'm gonna probably mess up a lot. I'll just say in gardening, you want to simulate the forest floor. So you want to have like either grass clippings or like a very fine mulch. You want it to be layered. You want to do it year after year. So, but anyways, I don't know why I'm getting into that so much. But yeah, if you're interested in that, I'm definitely gonna be doing some gardening videos, as well as how you can save money by gardening. Probably gonna try and make an apple pie out of the apples I have at some point. I just have lots of ideas, and in the present moment, I have a hard time focusing on what I want. Is one of the reasons why I've been really inefficient my time instead of recently, which I finally been refining what I want in the present moment. I've been taking action on it. Been taking action on it. And yeah, it's just what I would say is that I love you. I love everybody. But love is something that you should hatred is just very bad to say. The way it resonates with your body's getting like water. I'll do a video on this, but different words have different impacts on your body. So body is water, and when you speak, it's a vibration, or that's how like your ears interpret it. Certain hertz is what it's called. It also hits your body. Your body's mainly water, and that does something. But that doesn't necessarily mean I love you as much as I love, my family and people I really care about. But I still love you as if you were a great friend of mine, which you may or may not be. I guess I may or may not ever know. Anyways, I really appreciate you watching me for as long as you have. I don't know if you've been here the whole time or not, but yeah, I appreciate it. And I will have finance videos on how to invest your money when I am a little bit more refined in doing so. I'm sort of getting a grasp on it, but at the same time, it's a little bit difficult at the moment. I'm going to have all sorts of videos. I'm part of a club, Turning Point USA, and I'm going to have some videos of people on campus. I might have a live stream tomorrow about that because we're doing a free speech ball, depending on whether or not it's raining and depending on whether or not I can connect to the school Wi-Fi, which I haven't been able to do yet. I might just do it on my phone. Yeah, that actually probably will be the move. I'm probably going to do it on my phone regardless because it's definitely something that needs to be documented because people have adverse reactions to people expressing their opinions openly on college campuses. And something might happen tomorrow and it needs to be on video. And why not on my channel? We also had an event recently that I will be posting at some point. But yeah, you'll see those if you're subscribed. If not, probably see me again at some point because I'm going to be very dedicated to creating content because it's something I'm passionate about teaching others. And something that I feel like is very important. And I like it, so why not? Um, I'll also have like forbidden knowledge at some point. I don't want to get too in depth about what I believe because I don't want to get suicided or demonetized. Well, I'm not even monetized, but I don't want to get my channel taken down. Because I'm doing this because I like doing it. And I want to do more what I like. So, if it becomes something that's profitable at some point, so what? It's not It's not something that if you when you do something, you should do it because you love to do it, not because of money. That's why a lot of people get stuck in this way of thinking. They feel like they have to have a job so they can pay for their car, their house, and all this other stuff, and they have to have all this. They have to have a car so they can get to work, and they get a car. It's sort of like a trap. You pretty much have to have a car. We don't have to have a car. You have to have transportation at some point. Like, if you want to be able to, well, you have to have. Like, I guess you don't have to have any of these things because homeless people don't. But what I'm trying to make is that people are a lot happier when they do what they love. And I love doing lots of things, and I might as well document them. And other people might like it. People are definitely not going to like what I do. That's okay because I don't need to embody that negativity because it'll stay with them. They try to like shoot their negativity towards me. I just am like, all right, cool. Like on campus, sometimes people say very negative things to me. I'm just like, all right, have a good day. Because I'm nice to them, sort of negativity that they try to put on me is stuck with them. And that probably follows them for at least a little bit. But yeah, should probably go to bed and have class in the morning. But thank you so much for watching. Um, really had a fun time talking, and I will see you soon, hopefully. And have a great rest of your night or morning. It's technically morning. But yeah, have a great rest of your time awake, and hopefully you get good sleep. And I hope you have good health and everything. See you soon, maybe.